so much, Demetrius, and welcome everybody to our fall fundraiser. It is really my pleasure to be here tonight. 5 years ago this month, the wonderful Brittany Minard made the decision to move from her home in California to Oregon in order to access medical aid in dying. She and her husband, Dan Diaz, chose to partner with Compassion and Choices, and this was a turning point for our movement. The People magazine video that we produced ended up resulting in millions of people having a conversation about end-of-life autonomy. Since that time, 5 states and Washington, D.C. have authorized medical aid in dying. The pace for our progress was unprecedented. While we are very proud of the accomplishments that have taken place since Brittany came forward and shared her story, unfortunately, 4 out of 5 Americans still lacks access to this compassionate option. As importantly, even in states like Oregon, where this option exists, there are still far too many regulatory roadblocks for a dying person to be able to access the law. Imagine the experience that a terminally ill person has when they're attempting to navigate the law and they're expecting to experience compassion, but instead of compassion, they get a roadblock. And sometimes that roadblock turns into a dead end. But what I'm really excited to share is that Brittany was the very first storyteller. She really set the pace and paved the way for a courageous terminally ill person to come forward and share her story. Since that time, hundreds of other storytellers have shared their personal experiences, helping to explain why it's so important that we give autonomy and compassion to people at the end of life. And here we are 5 years later, and we have another People magazine story, another story of courage. This time, Hannah Olivas is a Las Vegas native. She's a proud Latina, a member of our Latino Leadership Council, a wife, a mother, a grandmother. She is just 45 years of age, and unfortunately, she has an incurable blood cancer. Her determination and courage, and that of so many other terminally ill Americans, is why I am confident that this movement is going to continue despite very relentless opposition, because they are the ones that help to demonstrate why our work matters. While we have made great progress, in the current legislation, there are still far too many regulatory roadblocks. But fortunately, you here in Oregon, the pioneers of this movement, once again stepped up to the plate. Earlier this year, Oregon State Senator Floyd Przansky introduced legislation that gave doctors permission to waive the 15-day waiting period for patients who were imminently going to die. And in July, Governor Kate Brown signed the bill into law. So let's give you some round of applause. While this amendment does not remove every needless roadblock, it is a step in the right direction. In time, and with all of our continued efforts, every eligible patient who wants medical aid in dying, and only eligible patients, will be able to access it. As we reflect on how far we have come since Brittany Minard first shared her story, what's most notable to me is the impact we're having on how medicine is delivered at the end of life. Medical aid in dying really isn't about the few patients who choose to access this law. It turns out that what it's really about is it serves as a catalyst to help create a culture shift in medicine, the same kind of culture shift that we saw take place in the childbirth movement, when we went from a paternalistic system to one that was patient-directed. Patients are reclaiming their voice in healthcare, and health systems, hospices, doctors are recognizing and respecting that patients should be the driver in their end-of-life care. The time has come to bring this transformation to more people. Too many patients approaching life's end are not equipped, encouraged, or shown how to claim their voice. And there is no place that this is more pronounced than within communities of color. The disparity is especially true among African Americans and Latino communities, whose members are less likely than white counterparts to complete advanced directives, to enroll in hospice care, to receive adequate pain management, or to access medical aid in dying. With your support and the leadership of our African American and our Latino Leadership Council, Compassionate Choices is working to change this reality. Our movement has also not addressed yet one of the harshest realities in modern aging. 1 in 3 seniors die with dementia. And most of us, myself included, have seen its devastation firsthand. Survey data confirms that the vast majority of Americans do not want to live with advanced dementia. Yet in most cases, our medical system prolongs life and prolongs the ordeal for years and years beyond the point that's necessary, operating on the outdated belief that the goal of care is always the extension of life. Most people with advanced dementia receive life-prolonging treatments like antibiotics, pacemakers, kidney dialysis. Our medical system is keeping people alive long beyond what most people would want, robbing them of a naturally occurring, merciful exit. It does not have to be this way. Right now, under current law, every mentally capable adult has the right to document their desire to refuse medical treatment and allow for a natural death. With simple planning, we can reduce years and years of suffering. Yet very few people are taking those steps, even among our most informed supporters. That is why we have launched our new dementia initiative with a pair of tools to help patients reclaim, or should I really say pre-claim their voice. The first one is our Dementia Values and Priorities tool. It includes markers that you go through and helps you to identify the point at which you would like to choose to forego treatments should you end up with advanced dementia. The output of that is a customized dementia healthcare directive. The second tool is our dementia decoder. The dementia decoder quite simply can be used either in the early stages of dementia by the person who has dementia themselves or later on by their healthcare proxy to make sure that the person is getting care that's consistent with what they indicated they wanted in their dementia healthcare directive. I urge each of you in this room to leave tonight and go out and use the Dementia Values and Priorities tool to do your dementia directive. There is nothing more devastating for me than to be on the other end of either a person in this early to mid stages of dementia or a family member when it's too late to take steps to safeguard that person's future. One of the very first meetings I had after being CEO was with a woman named Virginia. She had been a university professor and she very proudly showed me all the awards on her wall. She remembered Compassionate Choices very well, and she remembered that I was going to be the person that helped her escape the state that she was in because her mind was missing and she didn't like to live that way. But she couldn't articulate enough what she wanted. She couldn't remember what she wanted, and she hadn't documented her preferences and her values, and she had no family around to help her, and there was absolutely nothing that I could do to help her. So please leave tonight, use the Dementia Values and Priorities tool, and make sure that you safeguard your future. The tools will help those people who are educated, who are motivated, who have empowered healthcare proxies who are able to advocate for them. They'll help a small number of people. But tools alone won't transform how people with dementia die. What we need to transform how people with dementia die is another cultural revolution, just like the one you in this room are so good at igniting. People must know that options exist and take the necessary steps to safeguard their future. Their healthcare proxies must feel safe, confident, and empowered to advocate for their loved ones' wishes. And the entire team that surrounds a person at the end of life, from their doctors to their nurses to the staff at a senior center, must feel compelled to honor and support them. By creating a national conversation coupled with local activism, litigation, legislation, we will advance how we live and die with dementia in the same way we are advancing medical aid in dying. And where better to do that than Oregon? Creating this level of transformational change will not be easy. Expect resistance. Expect opposition. Expect a long crusade. But in time, with persistence, we will transform and re-engineer how people with dementia die. While most of us will never be on the cover of People magazine or have the visibility of the extraordinary Brittany Minard, we are all shepherds of her legacy. It's a shared legacy that empowers loved ones, neighbors, strangers, and we ourselves to reclaim our voice, defend our dignity, and assert our values at the most challenging point of our lives. Thank you for honoring Brittany's courage by summoning your own. Thank you.